You're listening to the Psychic Dream Journey podcast with your host, author, and psychic dreamer, Kim Treffinger.
Well, thank you so much, Loyd. It's really fantastic to have you here today. I'm rounding up, some really great people to speak about dreams, and I'm hoping to, help contribute to the conversation. People don't speak about dreams nearly enough, and so anyway. How long have you been the director of the Office of Paranormal Investigations?
Well, that's a group that I founded in 1989 after JFK University's parapsychology program kind of went away, or we had a graduate parapsychology program. And we were handling case calls and working with people who had psychic openings and such. So once the program went away, I needed to set something up to kind of carry on that part of it to the public. So it's been since 1989.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a really long time.
Yeah, and we were doing that at JFK since before that. So it's been going on for quite some time.
And you're also the president of the Forever Family Foundation.
Yes.
And,
yes.
How long has that been in place?
Well, the foundation started a little over 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago now. And it is a foundation, a nonprofit that supports the work of spirit mediums in the grieving process, as well as supporting research into life after death, kind of all aspects of that. I've been president since 2013, but I was on the board, really on the advisory board before that. I'm still on the advisory board for that as well. So it's just something that I really love, working with the mediums, working with the folks that are there. It's really great nonprofit. People can join for free. That's one of the best things about it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
Very cool. Well, I'm dying to get into your book that's coming out next month, Psychic Dreams. And is there any particular aspect of psychic dreams that interests you particularly?
Well, the way psychic experience, ESP, shows up in dreaming, it's kind of runs the gamut from shared dreaming with people to dreams that seem like they might be of the future, but they're really of current events more than anything else. Probably the thing that interests me, as well as most people, is the idea of precognitive dreams, that we can sometimes dream of the future and kind of all the implications of that come up.
Well, I was looking into your book, and I saw that there was a reference to a researcher named Nancy Sondow,
right.
Who in 1988 wrote about the decline of precognitive events with the passage of time. And I was kind of struck by that just a little bit. And can you share something on that? Was that a study that she did just from her personal experience, or was there a group of people involved with that?
That was a study she did and published in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research. It was really kind of looking at a number of different types of precognitive dreams from people and people who had those kinds of dreams over time. There was actually a previous study that was done, published in a book. The book is available, called An Experiment in Time by J.W. Dunn. It came out in the 30s or 40s, where he studied his own precognitive dreams over a period of time as well, and looked at kind of the decline of, as you kind of have these dreams, they may actually kind of start going away. But what's really interesting.
Can you explain a little bit about that? What does that mean?
I should say the precognition itself. There is this thing called the decline effect in not just parapsychology, but pretty much every social science, and even apparently in some physical sciences, as it's been noted. This was an effect that J.B. Rhine, who's kind of the father of modern parapsychology, noted back in the 1930s. And that is that when you do a study, especially if you get into something quite often, and you don't have, we know more about this, which I'll get to here in a second. If you were to test people over and over again, there tends to be a decline towards chance of positive events.
Mm-hmm.
As if people are getting used to it or tired of it or bored with it. And that's actually what happens in psychology. In precognition situations, people, depending on the individual, they may have less and less precognitive experience unless they put value to it and intention to it. You know,
Interesting.
a lot of people are afraid of predicting the future. A lot of people, I've met people and spoken to folks who've had precognitive experiences or dreams about family members dying or getting hurt. And at some point, some of these people think that they are actually responsible for causing those events, which they're not.
Wow.
They're absolutely
Right.
not responsible for causing those events.
Right.
But they, you know, they tend to try to, I guess, block them out at some point, at some level. That does tend to happen. On the other hand, one of the problems with precognitive dreaming, or dreaming in general, when it comes to psychic experience, and honestly, this is psychic experience in general, including remote viewing and all the other things, is that sometimes you only get partial information.
Right.
You know, that can happen also because of dream recall. You're not remembering the entire dream, but we know that when people have a waking experience, just like a dreaming experience, they may not get the whole picture. And that can create kind of a little bit of a dissonance in their mind. They may be less likely to remember future dreams with that because it bothers them so much. You know, it's frustrating. Or on the other hand, it may be annoying enough that they continue to remember those dreams and have those precognitive dreams if there's something important to be told to them.
Right. Well, of people that tend to have psychic dreams, is there any research on, and I'm sure this is just a really hard subject to do research on, right? It's just so, it can be so random or a challenge to try to control it.
There's been research and not recent research, but there was a series of studies, and actually there was a book published called Dream Telepathy, doing experiments in Maimonides' sleep lab in New York. This is back in the 1960s, 1970s. And Montague Ullman and Stan Krippner and other researchers actually were able to set up situations where they would have an individual looking at a photograph or a picture of some kind, and the sleeper in the dream state would be woken up to see what they were dreaming about. And then they would compare that dream description to what the picture was. So you can do those kinds of studies. Precognitive studies can only be done in the sense that we can collect the reported experiences, the dreams, and then try to compare them against actual events. And if it's, you know, if the person didn't know that it was a psychic dream, they didn't report it before the event happened, the data is kind of contaminated. We can't really say, you know, it could have been somebody said, you know, I had a dream and it turned out to come true, and it may not have really been the case that that happened, you know, from a scientific perspective.
Is there any certain number of say, fact points that you might be looking for in a dream to say, well, you know, wow, that really, that counts as a psychic dream? I've sort of found personally, like, I like to have at least 3 points of a match to something.
It's not that. First thing that we look for is, you know, how close the description is. So, for example, I was part of an online e-group before September 11th, and actually through that entire year, 2001. And when 9/11 happened, someone on the group remembered that one of our members had posted a dream in June of that year about a jet hitting one of the World Trade Center buildings.
Wow.
You know, and that dream, the thing about psychic dreams in general is that they feel different. This is what I hear from people. I knew the dream was different. It felt different. It was more vivid. It was realer than real. I mean, these are all the cues that people have. So they know to take note of these things very closely. And so that's what this person did. The thing is that we had 2 planes that hit the World Trade Center, of course. There was no timestamp on that. And while that was a hit, you know, one of the things we don't know is what the skeptics would say. How many other times did that same person have a dream about a plane hitting the World Trade Center? Now, that individual did not report that at all. They might have had that dream, but it also may have been related to the same thing, because you know that dreams can recur over and over again to reinforce something. So if the
Right.
person had 15 dreams of a plane hitting the World Trade Center, they all could have been relevant to that one event. So we don't really have necessarily a way to say that there's a scoring system. We go by the subjective experience the person has of the dream and content of the dream to some extent as well.
Well, I'm also curious to ask you about what kind of studies have been done on, I'm sure it's much harder to do, in terms of long-term precognitive dreams.
Honestly, we have not had the facilities in parapsychology, the funding mainly. We have certainly a few people who are very interested in the dream connection, but most people outside the field of parapsychology who are interested in dreams, the majority are not necessarily interested in psychic dreams at all. And of course, many psychologists or folks in that area are very skeptical or even downright disbelieving that ESP even happens. So there hasn't really been a long-term study like that, which is really unfortunate. And even short-term, it's very difficult to kind of get those together.
Well, I mean, just primarily because I've had quite a number of experiences with long-range precognitive dreams where they were, 10 or 15 or 17 years out.
Wow,
and,
that's a long time, yeah.
And they were just seemingly little random, events.
Right.
But when I made the effort to go back and do some journal reviews, and they weren't easy to find right off the bat, but it was pretty shocking to me that even though, I've had experienced quite a few precognitive dreams in my life, I really was still blown away by the length of time, the span of time before the event occurred. And they were like, would have the name of a person, or multiple events sort of sandwiched into one dream that 10 years out, they happened close in time. But even, the reason that I wrote my book was when I discovered that I had dreamed 17 years out and included a drawing of a location and a quote that someone said at the at that location.
Wow.
And it was like, what?
That's a long time, and probably it's the only place we're going to have studies like that are people who keep a dream journal and can go back and check those things.
Is there any kind of web community where people can sort of post these things in an organized way where, it can become like a mass collective of, where skeptics will really start to have to say, look, this really is a lot of information. This happening to people all over the place.
There used to be for many years, there was the Central Premonitions Registry in New York, which was run by a New York Times reporter. People would send in their reports to a post office box, and he actually checked. This is well before the online advent, and he would check things. And there have been a couple of premonitions registries online, but they haven't really taken hold very much. I mean, it would be a really wonderful thing for someone to do. Part of it, though, is you'd also need a staff to be checking whether those dreams come true.
Right.
So that's it's not just posting the dreams, although.
Well, they could post them as they happen, could they not?
I think that would be, to me, that would be great. And then having the public be the researchers,
Yes.
But you'd really need the website to be promoted heavily for that. And I mean, it's not a bad idea. I'll talk to a couple other folks and see if they might want to. I know a couple people who might want to get something up on that.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, the thing about it is that one of the things we do know about precognition is that we can get information and change things too. So it's not that the future is set in stone, although if you dream of a tsunami, the odds are you can't stop that from happening, but you can certainly get out of the way if you're involved in it. So there are some really interesting things about precognition and precognitive dreams. It seems like the little things like you were talking about, the very mundane things,
yes,
those are the ones that seem to come true more often in some respects than other ones, because with other ones, they're noted more consciously and people might make slightly different decisions because of that information.
Very true.
Yeah.
Do you also feel like maybe sometimes people would have a precognitive dream that is sort of connected to a personal, growth pattern that they're in, where just the very nature of the dream is going to encourage them to have somewhat of an aha moment? When like say if they dream it and it happens the same day, and because in that short span, then it's very apparent and might have a more powerful, they might have an internal response that would say, hey.
Well, I mean, most precognitive dreams most precognition in general tends to be shorter term. It's certainly a lot shorter than 17 years.
Yes.
And I'd say probably only a few days, maybe even the same day. I mean, people will have, and I have a number of relatively mundane precognitive dreams in the book, in the psychic dreaming book. This is illustrations of the fact that it's not about dreams about death or disaster most of the time. It really is just a very, very minor thing that you're going to recognize almost immediately because you remember the dream from the morning, from that
Right.
morning. So those things happen consistently to people. They also kind of masquerade sometimes as deja vu, because people who work with their dreams remember their dreams and will take note of them consciously. Most people don't remember the dreams more than a minute or so after they wake up. So someone could be walking along and suddenly have this sense of deja vu that I feel like this has been here before, or I've been here before. And that could relate to a dream that they actually have, a cognitive dream about that location and that time. What's interesting is that some people suddenly will realize, myself included, I've had many of these experiences, the sense of familiarity becomes a memory of the dream. So you now remember that you actually, oh my God, this is not just a deja vu, this is actually, I have the dream about this place. And there have been, for me, a couple of occasions, it's been rare, but a couple of occasions where I was in conversation with someone, it starts coming back to me, and I've actually been able to say what they were going to say because it happened in the dream.
Wow.
Yeah. But my friends know that I do things like that all the time. So they don't really get freaked out by it.
That's pretty cool. So, gosh, is there anything that you would recommend on how someone might go about trying to program a psychic dream?
Oh, yeah. Just general dream incubation techniques. Obviously, folks need to first learn how to remember their dreams. So they have to have the intention to do that. They have to start keeping a journal or recording of some kind when they wake up. And that, as you know, reinforces the idea of just remembering your dreams. So people tend to start remembering more at that point. They also need to, when they're journaling or keeping track of them, note when the dream seems, again, realer than real or feels different than other kinds of dreams. They need to actually make note of those, circle them, highlight them, something.
Right.
Because that, again, reinforces the process of it being psychic. And then if it does come true, they need to go back if possible and make notes. So going to sleep, just a standard dream incubation of, I will remember my dreams. I will dream about X. You can actually tell yourself what you want to dream about if you want to know what's going to happen at work the next day. And giving yourself permission to be psychic. This is an important thing. What we find when we are doing experiments, for the last probably 20 some odd years, most researchers will ask participants in experiments how they feel, whether they believe in psychic experience and psychic ability. But it actually is kind of a range from it doesn't exist to yes, it exists. Yes, people can do it. Yes, it's possible in this experiment. Yes, I can do it. Because unless you get to the I can do it, I believe I can do it, then you're kind of holding something back. And the dream state is almost the only place that can get past that. But if you have that, if you can include that in your programming, giving yourself not only permission, but telling yourself, I'm going to be precognitive. I'm going to pick up something about the future. I'm going to pick up something about a distant location, something with another person, have an out-of-body experience in my dream. All those things really pushes that programming in. And it may not happen immediately, but it does seem to happen.
There's so many different things that we can do with our dreams. It's really endless, basically.
And the funny thing is, when I was doing my initial research years ago, because I come from parapsychology, I come from the psychic side of things, and getting into looking at psychic dreaming, I had to do a lot of research and reading on dreams and sleep. And it was always amazing to me, having known so many really good dream workers, people who work with people's dreams, dream groups. Montague Ullman, who brought one of the main dream group methods to the United States from Sweden years ago, was a colleague of mine and a mentor in some respects. And to find that there were neuroscientists and other researchers who felt that we shouldn't remember our dreams because it was bad for us, when there's literally no evidence that that's the case, was amazing.
Right.
Was totally amazing to me.
Right. That's sort of, you just wonder if our culture was such that, we were closer to, some of the other cultures like the Kai and the Iroquois, where, if we raised our children to accept and be curious about their dreams and maybe write or draw them, to start at a young age to learn to be interested in the content of them, that it just makes you wonder how different our society might be.
Well, I totally agree with that. I think that kids are told not to do things or not to believe in things. So we get the question all the time whether kids are more psychic than adults, and the answer to that's yes. And it's not because we grow out of it physiologically. We grow out of mentally because we're told.
Right.
We're told by our schools, we're told by our religion, we're told by our culture, and even by our parents. Just like parents will tell their kids, unfortunately, some parents tell their kids they're stupid, and the child does not become very smart or doesn't feel motivated to learn because, they're stupid.
It's really sad.
It's very sad. I've seen situations with very creative people, and creative kids, in fact, who are told not to be creative. They have to focus on math, or they have to focus, which is great. You can be creative in math and science too, but to cut out the arts, which we're seeing now thanks to politics,
Right.
which develops a lot of important neural pathways. Art and music are very, very important, even if you're not an artist or a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And to cut that out, to cut out creativity, it limits human beings. And focusing on dreams as for children would be one way of really including that, I think.
It really would. I think it would be give them a sense of empowerment too.
Yeah.
So. Well, is there, does science have any particular area of interest regarding psychic dreams? I mean, is there, or researchers, do they have a specific area regarding it that they are like, if we can only show this, we would, be satisfied on some level?
I'm not quite sure what satisfied might mean.
Well, I don't know, or just not, completely done, but is there like a next level that they're hoping to get to in terms of?
I do know that we've several of us have talked about this issue. There are different aspects of parapsychology that the psychic phenomena that don't receive enough attention, even with our limited community, and that's partly because of funding. And in order to do dream studies appropriately, correctly, either you'd have to do a significant outreach to people to report their spontaneous dreams, or you'd have to do stuff in a sleep lab, or both really would be the best way to do it. And there's just not a way to do that. The researchers who get funding for specific projects, and unfortunately having to have a sleep lab would be beyond the budget of most of the grants that are kind of coming in at this point.
Right. And you could probably just only have a few participants in that kind of space.
Yeah, I mean, there are sleep labs around the United States. Stanford University has one, which is where lucid dreaming came out of, actually. And it's just tough to get those researchers interested enough, so you'd have to establish a brand new one. And so, I hate to keep crying poverty for our field, but the culture in academia is such that we end up with people in various fields of academia who know nothing about the research, whether it is psychic dreaming or just parapsychology in general, making blanket statements or saying this can't be possible, so why would we even look at the question, which is incredibly unscientific, because what it does is says that you're basically disregarding people's experiences. Whether they're psychic or not, you're disregarding experiences. And that's not scientific at all.
Right. Well, I mean, even just, people sharing what has happened is enlightening in human consciousness and experience in general.
Yeah, and I think that there are dream groups around the United States that talk about psychic dreams, and it's just that there's not a kind of a network focused specifically on that. I'm hoping that, and there have been other books out on psychic dreaming by a couple of my colleagues over the years, but I'm hoping with this one coming out now that there might be at least some more interest and focus from some other folks.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share about your book or other work that you're doing?
I can say the book is somewhat of an introduction for people who come at the subject from the psychic side of things. Most people, like myself originally, I didn't know much about dreaming and sleep and dreaming in general. So it really does kind of go into that side of things as well. That's the beginning of that. Because without understanding what dreams are, what sleep, where the place in sleep in altered states, it's hard to move into the psychic part of that as well. But there's a range of these kinds of experiences. The book talks about out-of-body experiences that happen in people's dreams. And those are interesting because on occasion, people will have a dream of going out of their body and visiting someone. And the person will then the next day call them and say, oh, that was really weird. You were here. I saw you as a ghost, or something happened in that way. But you find that with that, people will report dreams about historical events and will often think that maybe that's an indication of a past life, which may be true, but also may just be that they're remembering, piecing together something from movies that they saw or books that they read or history. So there is a piece in the book about reincarnation, kind of how to assess the evidence for yourself if that happens in your dreams and otherwise. So the book really kind of covers a wide range, but I also have a segment on how to work with dreams in general and how to work specifically with psychic dreams. The question you asked me before.
Yes. And so obviously it's a matter of setting the intention as you're falling asleep.
That seems to be, it's a programming thing you have to learn. And really, when people ask me, people want shortcuts. They all want shortcuts.
Yeah.
But in reality, you have to first learn to remember your dreams. Because maybe you tell yourself to be psychic in your dreams, but you don't remember any of them. And that doesn't do you any good.
Right.
There's also a component of the book, of course, about psychic experience in general, what ESP is, the kinds of experiences people have in general. And, the thing that's frustrating to a lot of people is how often the information is just partial. It's just piecemeal. But again, if you had a dream that gave you a piece of a puzzle, the thing to do would be to have that dream programming the next night to try to get the other pieces of the puzzle, to try to fill in the puzzle.
Right.
Because that might actually bring it out. That's what we try to do when we're working with remote viewers, is try to kind of have a secondary viewing perhaps for the pieces that they did not get. The other thing that happens with psychic experience is that people immediately start trying to name or categorize or label things, and then that can actually cause our minds to fill in blanks that are incorrectly or mislabel things. Mm-hmm. So if people do remember their dreams, they should try to describe but not name, draw things, even if it's a partial image that they're only getting, because that may fit better with what's coming than anything else. And the other thing that we get asked is, if you have a dream about a disaster, you have a dream about somebody in danger, do you warn them?
Right. That's hard. That's a really hard one. I experienced that myself.
I can tell you there's a couple of examples of that in the book. warning, that's right, it's okay. Warning people may not be that hard, but what happens if your dream comes true may cause any number of different reactions. People have a weirdness about precognitive experience. People do see psychics for that reason all the time. And yet, if someone said to you, be really careful going down the stairs today because there's something on your stairs and you're going to trip and break your leg. And if the person disregards that and that happens, that person may no longer want to be your friend because you're too weird now.
Right.
You're a witch. You're a witch.
I know.
and then the other side of that is they may see the thing on the stairs and move it and say, well, your dream wasn't true. I didn't break my leg. And the reason they didn't break their leg is because they listened to the person's precognition and changed the future. So there's this other side of it, which is when things don't come true because they actually act on the information.
Right.
Then, then
and you don't know if your dream was real or not.
Well, I actually think you kind of do know that your dream may not have actually had the outcome that was appropriate, but it still had the conditions that would have led to that. And the thing is that person probably not going to disregard you as a friend anymore, but that person is going to wonder, what would have happened? And there's going to be that kind of wondering. The best psychics will often tell people that I can predict your future right now, but if you come back to me next week, having been told what I told you last week or today, that may, I'm going to have different predictions for you altogether. Because if you act or use that information at all, you're changing that river. You're changing the potential future.
Right.
It's always in motion.
It's so fluid.
Yeah. And then if you warn people about death, something really nasty, that freaks them out. I mean, that actually, and unfortunately, that actually could lead to them getting hurt too. Because they may get so reckless, like, I'm not going to listen to this at all. They get so reckless.
No, it's such a, how do you decide? I mean, you've dreamed this and it's a very, very serious message in your dream. And you are like, okay, I could be totally wrong and not tell them. And then this thing happens to them. And how will I live with myself the rest of my life? And so,
the only thing you could really do is figure out ways to couch the information without saying you dreamt about it. People seem to take gut feelings better. I have this bad feeling. I want you to be careful when you just watch out for stop signs. Watch out. Make sure you stop at every stop sign and wait an extra couple, because I got this gut feeling. Not I had a dream about it. I have a gut feeling. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be more acceptable than saying you had a dream about it.
Yeah.
And then there are some times that people can't act on it at all. There have been a number of famous cases where the information was just partial enough. It was there. It convinced someone that we would act on it if we could. There was a case of a gentleman back in the late 1970s who had he wasn't a psychic, he had recurring dreams of a jumbo jet going down at O'Hare, crashing and killing everybody on board. And he saw the jet, he saw the number of people on the jet, he saw the approximate time of night, he saw what was wrong in his dream, what was wrong with the aircraft that caused the problem. And he ended up calling the FAA. And through a contact I had at NBC News many years ago, I spoke to the guy who took the call. They took him seriously because after checking him out, he had no aeronautics background. He should not have known about the mechanics of an aircraft, but he did not know the airline. Oh. He did not know, he knew the weather conditions. It was a clear night, but that's all he knew. Didn't know, of course, temperature, so he had no idea of whether it was summer or winter because he didn't see any snow on the ground. That didn't mean anything. And the problem he described in the aircraft would have taken each aircraft out for 24 hours to fix. So without knowing the airline, you could not take dozens of jumbo jets out of commission. They did send out a warning to some of the airlines to look for it if there was any other problem with planes, to look for that.
Wow.
But and it was only because the description was so specific. Had it been something different, had the faults been something that could have been fixed, like through visual inspection or something, relatively quickly, mm-hmm. They probably, what the FAA guy told me is they probably would have pushed that really hard on the airlines because it wouldn't have been a big deal for them. It would not have delayed planes. It wouldn't have done any of that at O'Hare. So you have to know that, you might try to warn things, but you also have to get used to the idea that A, they may not listen to you, and it's not your fault. You did everything you possibly could by warning them. And B, it's possible that what you got, the information you got, is not enough for them to do anything about it. So again, you did everything you possibly could. You can't go any further than that. You cannot take responsibility for it.
Right.
You can feel bad, as the rest of us feel bad, if an aircraft goes down, but you can't be you are not responsible for that
Wow. It was, well, I had an experience a couple of years ago where for the first time this has ever happened to me too, where I dreamed of very specific information. It was basically like a voice was telling me this in the dream, that a good friend of mine was going to be in a car crash, a DUI car crash, and not survive.
Oh boy.
And there was a date, which was like the next week. And
that's pretty specific.
And at the time, I hadn't seen her in a while, and another friend reconnected us. And she ended up coming to borrow some photography props from me. I'm a photographer. And so it was like, oh, you're here. You're here. I have to tell you this. But I was mortified. I was just mortified. I don't think she believes in any of this stuff to begin with. And it was really hard. I thought she's just going to think I'm a psycho. but I just, I didn't tell her, the seriousness of it. I just said, I think, you should take caution on the road on April 1st. And she stayed home. She didn't go anywhere. She stayed home.
And then she probably wondered whether or not you were crazy because you stayed home that day.
I know. I still see her. She still speaks to me,
that's
thankfully.
Good. That's good. But
but it was hard.
It's this double-edged sword of, do we warn people? Do we not warn people? And then are they mad at us or not mad at us because nothing happened because they did exactly what we asked them to do?
Right.
And there's no way to know. I mean, this is the problem.
I know. It's like there should be some follow-up dream that pats you on the back, or you got that one, or something.
Well, it's if life were like the movies, especially horror films, the event would have happened anyway. We actually, most of us are very happy that we can use this information to alter things if we can. And, it does show that the future is somewhat fluid. Again, there are fixed things like earthquake, natural disasters are fixed. But in general, there's a lot we can do to change things. And we just have to accept that when nothing happens, if we're listening to a warning, that's good.
Yes, it is good. It is good. It is good. Well, goodness. So do you have any new stuff going on aside from the book?
Well, I'm kind of like spread out in the field of parapsychology. I'm an educator, so I teach courses. I teach a course in psychic dreaming, or about the research and about what's been done. But I teach a number of other courses on psychic phenomena as well. And right now I'm in the middle of teaching an investigations course, kind of a paranormal investigations course online for the Rhine Research Center. The Rhine Center is the nation's oldest laboratory. It's been around. It used to be at Duke University back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and into the 60s.
Wow.
And so we do online courses. We are going to offer a couple courses in dreams. Ryan Hurd, who I've mentioned to you.
Yes.
And I are going to be co-teaching a course, and we'll be doing a psychic dreaming course later on online for the Rhine Center as well. And then I teach locally here in the Bay Area, teach courses, again, all aspects of psychic phenomena. The next book I have coming out from Llewellyn, in fact, is a book called Mind Over Matter. So it's away from dreaming and more towards the affecting things with our mind. So instead of precognizing things, this is actually affecting things.
Is that more of psychokinesis, or?
It is psychokinesis. It's all about psychokinesis, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's a topic I really enjoy working with people on that. We occasionally do spoon bending parties, actually.
Really?
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Go through a lot of utensils, but they're a lot of fun. And then actually, I'm working on a project right now, which launches on May the 4th. and it's inspired by Star Wars. It is the Church of Jediism.
I
And
love that name.
yeah, the guy in England, in the UK, has he started this many years ago, and he took his site down a number of months ago. He had 500,000 followers on his site, apparently.
Wow.
He's relaunching it with an author's help. They have a book coming out in November, kind of like the Jediism scriptures. But we are going to be offering courses, which will include everything from creativity and mindfulness to my courses, which are on developing your psychic ability, kind of developing your superpowers.
Superpowers.
So,
we can all use more of that.
Yeah. So, and they'll be very, very low cost video courses. They'll be kind of fun for folks to do. And it's the Star Wars connection is always a lot of fun to play with because it's a great metaphor for things.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much, Loyd. This has really been a fun experience for me personally, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will enjoy what we had to chat about today.
That's great.
And I look forward to connecting with you again and checking out some of your classes. I'm still working on the daytime aspect of developing psychic abilities. It's been a sort of a great frustration for me that it just happens spontaneously in my sleep, and in the daytime, not so much. So,
yeah, there are ways one can develop
yeah.
find what you're good at. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out to chat with me, and I hope everyone will check out your website. Can you share that again one more time?
So the website, which is actually currently down, we're just redoing it, is mindreader.com. But people can find me. Actually, the best thing for people to do is follow me on Twitter, which is @ProfParanormal, as in Professor Paranormal. Or you can also find me as Loyd Auerbach Author on Facebook is another way to. And I have a YouTube channel, and there's a couple segments on psychic dreaming on there as well. Yeah,
you've got like a couple hundred videos on there, don't you?
Not quite that many, but I haven't put them all up. I actually have a lot more TV appearances, but I'll be putting up some other things there. But.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. This has been really great. Thanks.
For information about Kim's book, Sleeping with Spirit, A Journey with Psychic Dreams, visit psychicdreamjourney.com.